When it comes to wild rivers, Mark Angelo is the good news, bad news bear. Today he has some good news about the return of health to some BC creeks, and he has more adventures to take us on. Angelo is the founder of BC and World Rivers Day, and he is the chair of the Rivers Institute at BCIT. He's a conservationist and environmentalist. It is my pleasure to welcome Mark Angelo back to Studio 4 to tell and show us more.
Good to be here, Fanny.
Nice to see you again, you grizzly.
Good to see you, you bobcat.
I know. See, people who don't know.
I know.
Don't know we went to school in Montana, and you grizzlies were the bobcats' rival.
We were fierce rivals.
Good
friends, but fierce rivals.
I know. I wonder who's winning now. We have to go back to homecoming to see.
I'm actually going to go down there this fall in October. And
back
for the
to
first
Montana.
Time, back to Montana. So
How
I'll check
great.
it out.
Some river issues in Montana.
Lots of river issues.
Yeah, in the Kalispell and all of that.
And actually when I'm down there, I'm going to spend some time on a river that was dear to my heart when I was young, the Blackfoot River, which leads into the Clark Fork River. But it was just the site of a major dam dismantling effort and a river cleanup on a huge scale. And when I was young, it was one of the most toxic sites in the state. But to go back there and to see it now with the dam totally dismantled, to see the river free-flowing again, to see it all cleaned up, it was a massive 4 or 5 year effort to clean it up. But I'm quite excited about that.
I bet you are. And I heard there was an oil spill in the Yellowstone. Was it the Yellowstone?
Yeah, there's been concerns. You know, it's interesting as you look around North America and around the world, unfortunately, there are still lots of incidents like that happening, no question.
When you put your hand in a river, how do you know if it's healthy or not?
Well, it's interesting. A river that's, you know, I know very well over the last 35 or 40 years is Britannia Creek, as an example. The site of another amazing restoration story, and we got some incredible news this year. We saw salmon back in the creek for the first time in a century. But before the cleanup on that creek started, I could put my hand in it and the water just felt funny. It almost had an acidic feel to it. It was suffering from this acid runoff from a major mine. And I'd walk up the creek, I'd turn over a rock, there were no insects, there was no vegetation, no fish. It was very much a dead creek. But to see it come back over the last few years has been remarkable. And this year, to see salmon back in the creek for the first time in 100 years.
So the fish get it? Or do they just, if all the mess is coming off the mine, they just don't go there, or they die if they go there?
Well, the pollution certainly killed off all the fish in the creek many years ago. But I think what's happened in Britannia, and there's been lots of press about that recently, but it's really a good news story in that it shows if we give nature a chance, you know, it can heal itself, it can come back. And I look at Britannia, and once again, to me, it just highlights that if the right steps are taken, and in this case, we came up with the funding for a massive treatment plant, there was a massive cleanup effort, and it just goes to show that if the right steps are taken, we can turn things around. And I think what's happening on Britannia Creek, not too far from Squamish, right now, is certainly proof of that. So my belief is you should never give up on any river.
Okay, and you certainly don't, I know. The creek in Burnaby, is it Gouchon?
Wonderful little creek in Burnaby, Gishon Creek.
Gishon?
Gishon. It's going to be the scene of a major Rivers Day event this coming Sunday. We'll have lots of things for families. It'll be a great celebration, but also we are going to be celebrating the dramatic restoration of that stream, which is one of the classic urban stream restoration examples. That stream was pretty much a lifeless drainage ditch, only a few decades ago, and now it's come back. The stream has been restored, the environment around it has been restored. It's a refuge for fish, for wildlife, for people. So it too, I think, is a really inspiring example. And once again, that'll be celebrated this coming Sunday, an event there that'll run from 11 to 3, and if the weather's good, we'll have literally several thousand people there, I think.
What was your dream when you started BC Rivers Day, World Rivers Day? What did you want to happen?
Well, looking back in 1980, I felt like, you know, we have the greatest river heritage in the world right here in this province, and I felt there should be a day that celebrated that. So we really pushed to make that happen. We celebrated our first BC Rivers Day on the Thompson River with about 40 paddlers and with a bunch of rafts, and we cleaned up a bunch of debris. It was a great event.
I bet, and a few beer drinkers.
Well, we got together that night in the Lytton pub.
Yeah, you have to go to the Lytton pub because you have to shoot stick, right?
And we said, hey, this was really exciting and fun, but rewarding too. Let's plan a few more events the next year and then a few more the year after. And it took off to a point where BC Rivers Day grew to have more than 100 events taking place around the province with about 75,000 participants. And that in turn eventually led to what we now know as World Rivers Day.
So do you go up north to the Skeena and the Stikine and the Nass and all of that, or just more local, or is it all over the province?
It's all over the province. If people go to the website as an example, worldriversday.bcit.ca, you know, they'll find a list of events, or the Outdoor Recreation Council website at orcbc.ca. But they'll see a list of events around the country, around the world, but also around our province. And we have events pretty much in every community in every corner of British Columbia.
Right. Is it a celebration day as opposed to a protest day? And by that I mean, if the sacred headwaters are being threatened, will you protest at a World Rivers Day, or are you more likely to say, let's embrace the river?
I think Rivers Day has a number of objectives. First and foremost, I think it celebrates the many values of our rivers, the natural, cultural, recreational values. But at the same time, it gets people out on our rivers. It gets them, I think, to appreciate how important our rivers are, and it helps to create a greater awareness as to the threats that confront rivers. And for people who get involved in Rivers Day, I do think it encourages them to become more active as river advocates, and certainly on some systems, like the sacred headwaters, it profiles some of the serious issues confronting rivers.
And there are some serious issues confronting the headwaters, I understand, the sacred headwaters.
Yeah, no question. You know, coal bed methane gas proposal has been a very contentious development there. A lot of concern as to how that would affect the headwaters of three of our greatest salmon rivers. You know, the Skeena, the Stikine, the Nass. You've got the headwaters of these three great rivers, all within close proximity to one another. So that's a high-profile issue, and for that reason, the sacred headwaters has been very prominent on the endangered rivers list.
And as rivers go, they're beauties.
They are.
They certainly are.
British Columbia has amazing waterways.
No kidding. Take me to India.
Well, I just got back from an amazing trip in India. It's a country that I love dearly. My wife and I have been there a few times, but this trip I wanted to head to Ladakh. It's a part of India that a lot of visitors to India, tourists, aren't aware of and don't go to, simply because it's in the northern tip of the country. It's high up in the mountains adjacent to Tibet, high up in the Himalayas. Most people, when they go to India, they go in, let's say, February to see, you know, the Taj Mahal or to see Jaipur, the well-known tourist sites. But that's not a good time to go to Ladakh because it's so high. There's still snow there. But if one goes to India in July, it's an amazing part of the country in terms of its culture, it's Tibetan Buddhist, and in terms of scenery, incredible high mountains. It is a spectacular part of the country.
I can imagine, because you're in the Himalayas, right?
Right. You're way up in the Himalayas, and amazing beautiful monasteries, amazing mountains, great rivers. And once again, culture, it's almost more Tibetan than Tibet now.
Really?
Most of the people who live there are Tibetan in nature. A lot of Tibetan refugees have come over into Ladakh in recent decades from Tibet itself. India has really encouraged the Tibetan Buddhist culture to thrive. And so culturally, it's a fascinating place. And I met up with a fellow that I spent time there. Geographic Expeditions helped me set it up, who was a monk in training. And just knowing the importance of religion in that country, I found that to be incredibly interesting.
Did he try to recruit you? Did you learn to meditate?
Well, I did learn a lot more about the religion. You know, I feel like I'm only scratching the surface with it. But we would go into monasteries, and amazing monasteries there. And that image you just saw as an example happened to be a place where monks would come several times a day to pray, and they all had their seat at the bench. And the pile of clothing you saw, all of those were the personal belongings of each monk who always sat in the same place.
Yes, it brings out the Leonard Cohen in you, doesn't it? Or, you know, Deepak Chopra, he went on a retreat to a Buddhist monastery, and apparently the first day you have to walk barefoot through the woods.
Yes.
And he let him wear his tennis shoes. Because, you know, he wasn't a real Buddhist. It was pretty good. So, take me to the market, the women, the culture, the food.
The food is great. The market is great. Leh is the capital of Ladakh, and it's a fascinating city. You know, it's surrounded by great mountains, obviously, and verdant farmland, and it's strikingly beautiful. The town itself has all these neat little alleys, you know, where you can meet vendors. The markets are amazing. The woman there, she's actually a nomad that we met while we were traveling through the countryside. and spent some amazing time with some of the nomads there in their tents who simply move 4 or 5 times a year. You know, depending on snow and weather, they'll take the few animals that they have.
Right.
They'll go and build a new circular rock tent and cover it with skins, as you saw there. And they'll just set up shop there for 2-3 months and then move on.
And how do you communicate with a nomad?
Well, fortunately, my friend, my guide, my monk in training, a wonderful man, was excellent in that regard and much needed.
Yes.
But it was great because while we started off in Leh, most of our time was spent in the countryside, up in the mountains, and we spent a lot of time, of course, along the Indus River, which is one of the world's
Sure. And is
great
the Indus,
waterways.
is it India-Pakistan share it?
Yes, the Indus River runs off the Tibetan Plateau. It's fed by glaciers, runs through India and then Pakistan. Now, India and Pakistan, as you know, have had a very
Don't get along all that well.
relationship. But one of the few bright spots has been the water sharing agreement they have with the Indus River. But having been there and having seen the plateau before, the glaciers are receding quite quickly, and I think there's a good chance within a decade or so there'll be a lot less water in that river, less water to share. So what is now a bright spot between the two countries, when there's less water to go around, it may well become another bone of contention in future.
Sure, and water, as you know, last battles fought over water.
No
Water
question.
scarcity, a big thing. Would you blame that, the glaciers retreating climate change, or in something else, or
No,
a natural cycle?
I think on the Tibetan Plateau, it's mainly driven by climate change. And we're seeing lots of changes around the world, but the glaciers on the Tibetan Plateau are receding incredibly fast. It's one of the areas in the world that I think is being hit harder than most.
And when the people are nomadic and live off the land like they do?
No question. I mean, obviously they're very dependent on water. And we would travel up some of the tributaries of the Indus and had some amazing encounters with locals. And that's one of the bridges that we'd often cross on some of those tributaries. And you wanted to be careful not to fall off.
Well, there doesn't look like there's a railing.
There isn't.
Well, are you on belay or anything? What happens?
No,
you
I mean,
cross,
we had
you
no
walk
choice.
How wide is it?
Oh, it's maybe 30 inches across, maybe 3 feet max, but 30 inches across. And when the wind is blowing in some of those valleys, you want to be really careful.
Stop. Can you crawl across it?
Oh, I did
Can
crawl
you
across.
hands and knees? Like, I'd have to hands and knees.
I usually walked across it, but when the wind was blowing, there were a couple of sections where I literally crawled the last small
No
stretch.
kidding. And how far down is the river?
In that case, maybe 30 feet or 40. But if you were to go in, it's fast, and as you could see, the walls on the creeks are very narrow.
So you wouldn't
you'd
get
be in
out.
the water for a long time.
Pretty much.
So it could be dangerous in that regard, no question.
And if you didn't cross the river, what happened? I'm thinking if I was in Ladakh, love to go, but would not like to go on that.
Well, you don't have to do that. That's something we chose to do.
Okay.
But the trails of Ladakh and the roads of Ladakh are an adventure.
I bet. Like, I can ride a camel, I think. I saw you on the camel. That's a big camel.
That camel, that's a Bactrian camel that and quite a few of those live in the sand dunes in the corner of the Nubra Valley. It's a really unique landscape up in these high mountains. But I found out that I'm much better with horses than camels.
I'm sure. Did you have somebody leading the camel, or just you?
No,
just you on the camel?
Myself and my friend.
No, that's silly.
Yeah, he wasn't a cooperative camel.
I'm sure not, and they smell. That too. Okay, so World Rivers Day, September 25th, across the province. BC Rivers Day across the province.
It's an amazing
World Rivers Day across the world, obviously.
It's an amazing event. There's something for everybody. There'll be stream cleanups, there'll be educational outings, habitat restoration projects, community riverside celebrations. There's something for everybody, and I hope people will come out and join us. For that day, I'm going to spend most of my time at Gishon Creek, but I'm going to try to get to some other events as well.
How fabulous. Nice to see you again.
Great to see you, Fanny.
You grizzly. I remember you can catch all of our conversations on YouTube or follow us on Twitter at Fanny Studio 4.